Right, welcome back to the Young Fan Podcast and welcome to my final or revised League One predictions. Are we disregarding the ones that we did before the campaign kicked off? No. Is this cheating? I don't think so. We've only seen 10 games, but it does give us an opportunity to reflect on every single football club and, I guess, look forward, predict, and sort of see where I believe this football club could possibly go now we've seen them play a little bit of football, which is much easier. Before the start of the season, we're basing it pretty much off transfer business. You're basing it off a pre-season, potentially. But now we've sort of seen 9 or 10 games per club. It does give us a little bit of an opportunity to round up, reflect, and predict. And that's what we're going to be doing today. Hopefully you do enjoy this concept. Is it a concept? It's quite a basic concept and one that's been done many times before. If you do enjoy it, though, please do leave a like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell as well. That way you'll be notified when I go live or do a recorded episode just like this one. But yeah, let's get straight into it. We have been doing reflections quite recently. We did one with Tom from 4-0 written all over it. That's on the channel now. You can watch it. We sort of did a League One reflection and we did a Pompey one as well. But that reflection, I think, went down fairly well. But it didn't obviously give us the ability to talk about every single club. 24 clubs will be being ranked and tiered because we're doing it slightly differently than we did, of course, before the season started. In fact, the best way of doing it is showing you now. You can see on the screen, this is the tier list. We're not going to be going position by position and putting a club in exact positions because I don't really know why. I think it's because it doesn't really matter. I mean, it does matter, but we've got the key areas of the league table here, and it saves time, and it does give us more of an opportunity to talk about the football club instead of worrying about exactly where they've got to go in a league table format. The basis is relegation 21st, 24th, 13th to 20th. Sort of just below, it's below mid-table. It's the bottom half of the league table. 7th to 12th, sort of the top half, and then you get into 3rd or 6th. Of course, that's the playoff places, and then the top 2 as well. I know we've got top 2, and everyone's going to know who I think is going to win the league. I will be putting them, and we'll be sort of notifying who I think is going to win the league as well when we get to that tier or when we get to that club potentially. I might just go into top 2 originally, 2 clubs, and then wait until the end, and then narrow it down until we find our league winner, or I predict my league winner, should I say. So, enough rambling, let's get into it. Starting off with Accrington Stanley in alphabetical order. With Accrington Stanley, it's sort of been quite an Accrington Stanley start to the season, if that makes sense. And what I mean by that is they're 13th in the league, just below exactly mid-table, 13th. Technically the bottom half, but that feels harsh. And you look at sort of their early games. I know we're only 9 games and they've played 10. Some have played more than others. Of course, international call-ups have affected the amount of games slightly. But generally, Accrington, they're unbeaten for 3 or 4 games at the start of the season. A lot of draws. There wasn't any wins in that unbeaten run, but it was draws. And they did look good going forward. A 4-4 draw in the opening game of the season. The game after that got postponed. They drew the 2 games after that as well. They won the Football League trophy. So unbeaten run lasted 3 games, but of course it's an unbeaten run. An unbeaten run is an unbeaten run, and John Coleman knows exactly what this squad is all about, and he's a manager that knows League One. He knows Accrington more than absolutely anybody will know. He's a top manager at this level, and somebody, like I say, he's got an abundance when it comes to experience and knows exactly how to get, I'd say, the most and take this the best way possible, Accrington fans, out of limited resources. And let's be completely fair here. I'm not one to be a big club bias or someone to sort of look down on clubs because I'm an Oxford United fan. I haven't got too many feet to stand on. But ultimately, he is limited with his resources, limited with transfer budget. And again, it's always going to be a really difficult test for him. But he does it year in, year out. I think they're going to be fine. A few defeats after that. Accrington lost to Ipswich, lost to Forest Green, which felt like a really disappointing one. In particular, they lost to Wycombe as well. They actually lost 3 games on the bounce. Maybe there's a few question marks there. But since then, they've won their last 2, beating Cheltenham and Bristol Rovers. So they have got back on track now. And I think they'll be fine. And look, I just think with John Coleman and also key players like Sean McConville, he's an absolutely brilliant player, still going at 34. He's got he's the king when it comes to assist and goal contributions and chances created in League One. He's been doing it now for quite a few years. He's an exceptional talent on that left hand side. He can play as a left wing, he can play as a left wing back, left midfielder, anywhere down that left hand side. Look, I think they're going to be fine. I'm going to put them still in that 13th to 20th category, but the top end of that tier, if you like. In fact, for OCD reasons, let's put a TH there as well. I think they're going to be in that tier there, safer sound, closer towards the 13th. They're currently 13th, of course, at the moment, as of recording. Right, let's move on then. Let's go to Burton Albion. 12th 24th in the league at the moment, and I mean it's been a pretty horrendous start to the season. You name it, it's gone wrong for Burton, hasn't it? Losing their manager, losing a lot of games, conceding a lot of goals, and only one win in 10. 8 defeats in there as well. 24 goals conceded in 10 games. That is crazy. Absolutely crazy, and not for the right reasons at Burton. Look, it's like I say, it's gone quite wrong. It has gone quite wrong, and losing their manager, Jimmy Hasselbank, who's somebody really who was sort of not seen as a hero, but certainly did get themselves out of it, or got them out of a huge mess when he took charge 2 seasons ago now. It feels like it's been longer than that. Somebody who, was manager before that, came in after a really difficult start to the season, similar to one that they're having now, and saved them up against the odds. They're going to need someone that's going to come in and do something a little bit similar to Jimmy Hasselbank. It won't be him. He's resigned. And like I said, they're conceding way too many goals. And that, for me, is their downfall. Conceding way too many goals. And you look at the areas they need to sort of, I guess, fix. It is going to be their goals conceded. And again, when that comes, you hope that maybe the results could turn around. They did get their first win of the season quite recently, which is good, but they lost at their last game as well. So it does feel as though it's going to be a long season for Burton. And for that reason, I haven't quite seen enough to think they're going to stay in the league. I'm going to be completely honest. Sorry, Burton fans. I do think you're going to go down. And to put part on the misery, I reckon you are going to come 24th. I know we won't get on similar positions, or specific positions, should I say, rather, but I do think you're going to go down. I can only apologise. 24th, but definitely in that relegation tier for Burton Albion. So what I've seen so far, it hasn't been great, let's be honest. Right, so Cambridge United next then. Now, if you watched my episodes with Tom quite recently, you'll know I've got a bit of an affection with Mark Bonner, somebody who's a very, very good coach, I believe, at this level, plays a very attractive style of play, gets the best out of the squad that he's got, and last season for Cambridge did very, very well, and so far this season, I think he's doing a really good job. A lot of people, including myself, thought they'd go straight back down last season. They didn't do that. They did exceptionally well, stayed in the league comfortably, and so far this year, Cambridge are 7th as of recording after 10 games. They won their last one, 16 points. They're doing really, really well. 5 wins and 4 defeats, and a draw in there as well. They are conceding more than they're scoring. 16 conceded, 14 scored. So I would say that any area to sort of improve, it would be defensively. Can they stop shipping a couple more goals, or a couple less goals, should I say? But 14 goals isn't too bad at all. I mean, look at the top goal scorers in the league. I believe it is now Sheffield Wednesday. It's only 6 behind them. But in the grand scheme of things, that isn't too much. And of course, 16 goals conceded. That will be the area that Mark Bonner will be looking to highlight. But that does, I think, emphasise the style of play that he wants to play. He wants to play very, very attractive football, high line, press from the front, commit bodies going forward. He does a very modern 4-2-3-1 with a double pivot, and then a more, I guess it is quite a traditional central attacking midfielder with a front 3 as well. Joe Ironside being that number 9 a lot of the time. Sam Smith playing off the right, but also can play through the middle as well. Digby being that holding midfielder or one of the double pivot, with Adam May a lot of the time playing in that position. So Cambridge United, I think, are now becoming, better and better week in, week out. Although they lost their last 2 games before they won on the Saturday, in which a lot of the games did get postponed for international call-ups. You do think there is a real quality in that Cambridge side and a level of improvement as well. So, look, I have been very impressed by them. Do I think they're going to make maybe a rogue push for the top 6? They are 7th at the moment. I don't know. In fact, I do know, so I'm lying. I do know that I'm not going to put them in there, and I'm going to put them in that 7th to 12th tier. But I do think they're going to be fine, and I do think they're going to be a real banana skin for some sides in this league. I think they're going to be a real challenge for some clubs. They're going to be difficult to break down, even though they have conceded quite a few. They will try and be as pragmatic in defence as well, if they can be. But again, watch them out going forward, because they're a top side. And Mark Bonner, all jokes aside, he's a top manager. Mark, I love you. Let's move on. Right, so Cheltenham Town. Let's go to Cheltenham, because they've had, they're 20th in the league. And I spoke to Matt. If you haven't watched my live call that I did a few days ago, it went out a few days ago now. And we spoke to Matt, a brilliant content creator for Cheltenham. And he was sort of saying it's been quite a weird season so far. It hasn't been dreadful, but it hasn't been brilliant. It's been very, very inconsistent. In their opening 9 games, 2 wins, 2 draws, and 5 defeats. They are losing games of football, hence why they are just outside that relegation zone. They lost their last game, but won before that, then drew, then lost, and then won before that. They've been very, very inconsistent. And what I would say is, though, I look at it and I go, there is improvements. That there is improvement, and that also will be a real positive, especially, of course, as their new manager Of course, after Michael Duff left for Barnsley in the summer, they went with somebody who has been part of the coaching team or part of Michael Duff's coaching team for a while, sort of try and keep that continuity, because they lost Boyle as well, somebody who's a massive figure at that football club, being the captain, of course, and now Wade Elliott is in charge, and look, it was always going to take time. He's never been a manager before, and that transition was always going to be a real challenge. Going from a coach to a first-team manager, a lot of responsibility, a lot of pressure, figuring out exactly how you want to play and how you want to be successful, because that's exactly what a manager needs to do early days. He hasn't got any sort of previous, managerial experience to sort of back up. So he's got to go with pretty much a completely fresh start. He's got to go with a completely clean slate, and that again is going to be a real challenge for him personally, and also for Cheltenham, because like I say, if he's the real figurehead of this football club, like he is being the first team manager, if he's having to learn as well, then the football club are also going to have to go through some growing pains. I think that's what they're going through at the moment. I think the window they had was also fairly good as well. I thought Ryan Broom is also a really good addition. Of course, was at Plymouth last season. Celeb Taylor on loan has been an exceptional player. What a player he looks to be at the back. And I think what we've seen from Cheltenham is maybe a lack of depth in certain areas, but generally that starting lineup isn't too bad. If it starts playing some really good stuff, which I think Wade Elliott really wants to do, then I think they're going to be fine. Look, I don't think they're going to go down. And look, I have sort of some preconceptions of where I've put these sides in this tier list, but I haven't got exact tiers, if I'm being completely honest. That's sort of a little bit of a lack of preparation on my end. I've got an idea, but with Cheltenham, this was one of the most difficult ones to do. It definitely is either 30th to 20th or in that relegation zone. For now, I'm going to put them in there. But don't run away with that, Cheltenham fans, because that could change and could get worse. But so far, I'm going to put you there. But it would be the lower end of that tier, and you might even slip into that tier down the bottom there. But we'll come back to Cheltenham if we need to. Let's move over to Fleetwood now. Fleetwood, who are 14th in the league, another team with a new manager coming into this campaign, and it was, again, for him, and also another similarity, he's first managerial job as well, so it's going to be a real challenge, and growing pains is something that I'm going to speak about quite a lot. I think Fleetwood are adjusting, but I look at that form here, 3 draws, a win, and a draw, and that's in their last 5. But overall, 6 draws, 1 defeat, and 2 wins. Only 1 defeat so far this season, but 14th in the league. The draws, they're holding them back. They are winning the draw league. They're doing a very, very good job of winning the draw league. But, unfortunately, draws won't bring you sort of the top echelon of where you want to get to. The upper echelon, should I say. It's going to keep you in the league, most likely, but it's not going to sort of bring you into that top 6, that Fleetwood playoff side of a few years ago now. That's going to be the holdback, and that's going to be a challenge for of course, Scott Brown, the new manager, to get right. But he is sort of really trying to find out exactly how he wants to play, and he also had a fairly good window as well. I was quite impressed with their transfer window. Of course, Josh Vale came through the football club. A few centre-forwards came through in. Is it Musquay? I've butchered that. That's going to get cut out. No, it won't, actually, because I'm not very good at pronouncing names, and I've absolutely... I've butchered it. I'm sorry, mate, but you're number 9, and you came through the door. They did a bolster in those attacking areas, essentially. And that squad now does look much stronger. I do believe it looks much stronger. I think Woody's a really good addition as well from Colchester, I believe. That's where he came from, been doing well for League 2 side Colchester for a while. And bringing him in, it certainly does strengthen that that midfield. So I think they're in a good position. 14th, 8 goals conceded, only 9 goals scored. Very, very tight. They're not conceding many, but they're not scoring many either. That's going to be the downfall for me. But have they got the best defence in the league? They haven't. Bolton have got the best defence, I believe, but they're actually joint second best defence. So that is really, really promising, and that's certainly something to build on. Talk about building from the back. That's probably what Scott Brown wants to do. Start with a base and start with a real, because it is a real block at the back, and I think he is starting to really develop that. So look, I'm going to say they're going to be absolutely fine. It might be too early for them to sort of really be creeping into the top 6 at this stage. Although their form, they start turning those wins into draws, which is much easier said than done. They could be in a really good position. Scoring a few more goals is going to be the big test for them. And if they get that right, then who knows where they could be finishing. It's between 7th to 12th or 13th to 20th. High end on that. I'm going to be a little bit bold here. I'm going to put them in that 7th to 12th tier. I think they really could be in there. I think that we are seeing signs of improvement. That squad is good, and they are getting better. So I'm going to put them in there, and I think you should be quite happy with that, Fleetwood fans. I think you'd be fairly pleased with the start to the season. Maybe the window, some people would argue, I think Tom mentioned it in the video we did quite recently, maybe that window was better than what we're sort of seeing in terms of their league position, dropping a few points, a couple of draws in which they probably should be winning. And maybe their performance in those draws as well, some of them have been, quite pragmatic. Hence the sort of lack of goals scored. But I think generally that they'll be pleased with it. And 7 to 12 for me seems quite fair. And they probably would take that. I think Scott Brown would as well, of course, with his first job as gaffer. Right, let's go to Ipswich Town because this is really, really interesting. Ipswich currently second in the league, of course. They lost their last game against Plymouth. Actually, this could be a big headline. They haven't won a game in the last two. Crisis at Ipswich, potentially. I don't think it is. That squad is very, very good. Excuse me, fresh as flu. Difficult to say, but that is certainly what I'm going for at the moment. A little bit of a cold. Look, I think with Ipswich, it's definitely not crisis point. It definitely isn't. Like I said, they've got a very good squad. They've got a very good manager as well. And before they lost to Plymouth, you look at that form, it's been good. It has been good. And something that Luca said, I think it definitely is Luca. Join the Discord server, by the way. Link in the description for that. Live call-ins, and if you want to get involved in the call-ins, had a few messages about how you get involved in that. The best way of doing it is getting involved in the Discord server. We randomly pick it across the season, and then jump in. We have a chat, and we get good discussion. And I spoke to Luca, who is was the Ipswich representative for that video, and he was saying, we've done very, very well. We've been professional in a lot of the results. Good wins against Accrington 2-0, Bristol Rovers comfortable 2-0. It was 1-0, 3-0, 3-0. They've had a very, very good start to the season, exceptional start to the season. Second in the league, they're unbeaten until the game on Saturday. But he did mention about maybe a bit of a big team letdown. And what he meant by that is when they've played the sides like Sheffield Wednesday, they played the sides like Bolton Wanderers, and now Plymouth, of course, another side that are really going to be competing. What I mean by big teams is basically the sides that should be competing with them, or now are competing with them for promotion, and potentially even top two, you'd say. And in those games, they actually haven't picked up a win yet. I mean, of course, some people argue, maybe there could be some underdog sides they have beaten that could be pushing. But I think the big ones, Bolton, who are proving so far that they are pushing. They drew that game 1-1. Barnsley, 2-2. 2-2 against Sheffield Wednesday. And our defeat against Plymouth. That, for me, is a little bit of a problem. And for Kieran McKenna, that's going to be something that he needs to look at, because where are they going wrong against the sides that are competing with them for a promotion push, or potentially an automatic push as well. So, are they going to get in that top two? I still do think they are. And we'll come back to my title winner, because I think that could come after we've put another side in that top tier. But I'm going to put them certainly in that top two. I'm pretty certain anyway. Yeah, I'm going to go in there. Oh, it's tough. But you've also got to look at it in the fact that you can't sort of have that short-term bias, because ultimately the games in which they have won, they've done very, very well. But they do need to improve against those sort of sides. But again, we're sort of looking at that from a results perspective. Barnsley, they probably should have won, they felt. And they've scored 19 goals, only conceded 8. So they're doing a very, very good job. They're 21 points, 1 point behind top. Look, you can't really fault them too much, but what I would say is that could be an area they do need to improve on. But I am going to put them in that top two. We'll come back to my league winner in just a second when we've got through a couple more of these sides. But in fact, we'll go for all of them. Then we'll pick my title winner. Right then, let's go to Oxford United, because this could be interesting. Of course, Oxford United fan myself. This is going to be a challenge to sort of predict where this is going to go. I look at the form here on this right-hand side. A little bit all over the shop, isn't it? A little bit all over the shop. It is inconsistent, and I'd say it's poor. Although we have won some games this season, and my sum is 2 in the league. And of course, 3 in the league. Sorry, my bad. 3, not 2. God, tell me off. It's been such a whirlwind of a campaign. I've completely forgotten. And it's only been 9 games we've played. What we've actually done, but generally, it hasn't been great. We're 19th in the league. 2 now losses on the bounce. A very difficult test for the Valley. Going to the Valley against Charlton. I'll be going to the game, of course, which is going to be very, very exciting. And that's going to be a real test. Even though Charlton aren't in great form themselves, nor Oxford. Quite similar positions, I'd say, in terms of, I think, league position, in terms of recent performances, and in terms of probably potential expectation as well at the start of the season. But look, we have won some games. Cheltenham was one. That was a very nitty-gritty, grind-out, lack of discipline type of match. Definitely a fight. One that we came out on top against. 2-1 against Burton Albion. Again, not a very good performance, but one we had to dig in, and we did. Cambridge United. Again, that wasn't a very good performance whatsoever. We scored very, very late on. Tyler Goodrum in injury time. We got away with it. We won the game 1-0. But in between all of that, it's been pretty horrendous. 1-0. 2-1, defeat these are to Bristol Rovers and Lincoln City, a draw at home to Morecambe, a loss to Crystal Palace in the Carabao Cup, not too bothered about it, but these are the important defeats here. Losing to Plymouth, we got absolutely dominated in that game. The scoreline doesn't really reflect it too much. The momentum graph kind of does. We were not good in that game whatsoever. Created very, very little, if anything, in that match. And going forward, Plymouth should have won the game 2 or 3-0. To be honest, if we're being completely honest, we didn't have a kick in that match. And then 2-1 against MK Dons, where we looked bad again. We look poor again. It hasn't been good. We have been affected by injuries, and predicting this season is quite difficult. But I do think as though we're going to be mid-table. We're going to be mid-table, but which part of mid-table are we going to be in? Bottom half or top half? Could I be optimistic and say... Could I be optimistic and put us in that top half? Maybe. Maybe we could. I'm just thinking of the players that are coming back, but... My gut says 13th to 20th. We have had a recent takeover as well, finally. We've had a sort of a change of ownership. So maybe we could see improvements, but that's going to be long term. That's not going to be short term. That's about sustainability and investing in the future, new stadium, etc. Doesn't really affect this season too much, I'd say. So maybe January you could see a bit more of investment, but I can't really see it. I think it's going to be a 13th to 20th finish for Oxford, which does hurt me. It is quite difficult to put and see, but... it's the reality. And unfortunately, all you've got to judge on is what we've seen so far. Look, I do think things can improve, and they've got to improve ultimately, because Carl Robinson will be in trouble, whether you like that or not. But yeah, we'll see what happens there. It's been challenging. It's been tough. And Vash is a fan. So as a player, as a manager, I imagine it's been even harder. Right, so Plymouth Argyle next. Of course, now the current league leaders in Sky Bet League. What a brilliant win against Ipswich at the weekend. Now top of the table. Very, very exciting stuff. Let's have a little look at them there. Top of the table. 10 games played, 7 wins, 1 draw and 2 defeats. 22 points. Now, they've won every single game so far this season at home. They are building a bit of a fortress at Home Park, it must be said. And they're doing very, very well. They're playing very good football. And that squad and Stephen Schumacher, he's doing an exceptional job. I got a little bit of stick in that video I did with Tom. We got quite a bit of stick in that video. It didn't go down amazingly well. I mean, it was a good laugh and people did find it funny. Or somehow, that was funny. And look, we got a little bit of insight. We tried to provide a little bit of insight. But we did get a little bit of stick for Stephen Schumacher and not giving him a mention for Manager of the Month. And I do regret not mentioning him, because he has had a very, very good start to the season. 18 goals scored, 12 goals conceded. But at home, like previously mentioned, he has built a real side. And that's, again, home and away, but especially at home so far this season. In fact, I think it sort of dates back to longer than that. They are an absolute force, and you don't want to mess with them at home. We've been at the wrong end of that, Oxford. For many games so far, but Plymouth was one of them, and they're a top side, a top side indeed. A little bit more detail on Plymouth and sort of where I'm going to put them, because it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to put them in into a specific tier, because like I say, they have had a very, very good start to the season. In fact, their recent form is very, very good. They lost a couple of games. Charlton, of course, that heavy defeat, but a red card in that game. A little bit of context, you'd say, in that match, but it wasn't a good result at all. A defeat to Fleetwood 2-1 felt really quite challenging. But other than that, they've won, and of course only drawn one as well, and that was against Portsmouth. Of course, that game was quite a thrilling game. It's really an encounter between two sides that, quite late drama, you'd say, in the end. Portsmouth sort of rescuing a point, and then in the 79th minute, Whittaker thought he'd scored the winner at Fratton Park. But generally, look, I think that squad is in really good shape and looking in a really strong position. That back three is working a really good job. The four in the middle, Joe Edwards on that right-hand side, the skipper playing as that utility man, but can play as a right midfielder easily and doing a great job of it. As Morgan Whittaker, that too is doing a really, really good job, and then Ryan Hardy, and they've also got Cosgrove on the bench. They've got Ennis that can come on. They've got a really good set of squad players. And that seems harsh to say, but what I mean by that is they've got a really good amount of squad depth. And, when they're not in the squad, they know that somebody else is going to come in and do a really good job of it. And Azaz, again, he was on loan. Was he somewhere last season? I can't remember exactly where he was, but he's come in. Sometimes get a little bit cautious about these sort of loan players and how they're going to work, how they're going to fit in. He's been fine, and he's certainly had a good start to the season. Ballymumba, though, he's been my real standout. On that left-hand side, number 17, he, of course, scored a goal against Ipswich as well in that game on the weekend, but he's been really good. So, and also Morgan Whittock as well, the loanee from Swansea City. He hasn't had a bad start to the campaign either. For that reason, I'm also going to put them in the top 2. But wait. That's quite aggressive. I might put more than a few in the top 2. A few contenders for top 2, and then we'll sort of narrow them down come the end. But Plymouth, they deserve to certainly be a contender. They might even creep into that top 2. Nobody knows. Let's move over to... Let's come back to Pompey and Sheffield Wednesday, because I want to sort of focus a little bit down the, take this the right way, bottom end of the league table. Right, so let's go to Port Vale then. Port Vale, where are Port Vale currently in the league? I believe they're around mid-table. 15th, just below mid-table. Bottom half of the league. 10 games played, of course, played through the international call at weekend. 12 points from those 10 games, 4 defeats, 3 wins, 3 draws. It's been a little bit hot and cold, a bit inconsistent, but really for Port Vale, you'd say it's been a really quite strong campaign beginning, because... Look, a lot of people, including myself, didn't think that squad was good enough to stay in the league, and so far they could still go down. They are shipping 15 goals and only scoring 10, which is a little bit of a downfall within that form. But generally, they've got to sort of grind out results. They're going to have to be quite pragmatic. They're going to have to sort of be quite a difficult side to break down. And when sides haven't maybe got that star, flashy quality compared to other teams in the league, that's probably the best way of approaching a game. Lost quite heavily to Peterborough United in their last game, but is that expected? You probably would say it is. Peterborough weren't in great form going into it, but generally are a very good side with real quality. Clark Harris, of course, scoring in that goal. And Port Vale weren't really allowed to get into that game. They looked quite under the cosh for the majority of it. A 2-1 win over Shrewsbury, a brilliant win, you'd say, in that case. 1-1 against Barnsley away from home. That's a really good point. So, look, they're picking up some really good points here and there. They're being pragmatic at times. They are showing that their quality going forward. They've scored 10 goals so far this season. So they're not a side that you would say that they're parking the bus. That isn't what I'm saying. But they are having to be quite difficult to break down and being quite annoying. And that's the best way of describing it. And I think Barnsley, in that 1-1 draw in particular, would describe them as a little bit annoying. But that doesn't matter for Port Vale, because although they are quite inconsistent, the last 5 games they only have won 1 game. They're still 15th and they're safe at the moment. And I think they're going to be safe. They're going to be in that 13th to 20th tier. I think they're going to be fine in there. They're not going to go down, which is a really good achievement, and they'd certainly take that. So fair play, Port Vale. You've been very, very good so far this season in the grand scheme of things. And like I say, a lot of people, like myself, thought you wouldn't have a chance. So good job so far. Right then, so Forest Green Rovers, let's go to them. Of course, in that relegation zone, the second team we're going to be mentioning, who are currently in that bottom 4, 22nd in the league, 10 games played, 2 wins, 2 draws, and 6 defeats, 22 goals conceded. We sort of, I think, we're quite harsh on Burton for conceding 24 goals, but 22 isn't much better. I'll be honest. 8 goals scored, 22 hitting the back of the wrong net, you'd say, for Forest Green. And the last 3 games they haven't won a game, and they've lost their last 2. 8 points. It's not been great. And it was a difficult summer for Forest Green. It was a very difficult summer because they had to deal with their manager going to Watford, who, surprise, surprise, already lost his job. Who'd have thought it? A manager going to Watford and losing their job. A lot of their key players leaving as well. Look at Nicky Cadden. I look at Kane Wilson, who's gone to Bristol City. These are top players who are very, very good in League Two and played a brilliant brand of football and played a very, very, like I say, attacking, forward-thinking style. And you come into League One, that step up is a real challenge. Maybe not as big as it used to be, but it is still a challenge. You have got to have a good squad, you'd say, or a very good squad, really. Look at the quality of the different squads in this division. Look, it's gonna be a test, and I think so far we've seen that so far for Forest Green. I tried to abbreviate that, but it didn't quite have the same ring to it. I do think that they're in trouble. I'm going to be honest, I do. I don't really see a way they can get out of it. Maybe a strong January, but I look at that squad, it is lacking in certain areas. And yeah, I just don't know. And sometimes it comes down to the fact that you've got to look at form, but again, that's still very short term. you have also got to look at maybe whether or not that squad is one of the fourth worst. I think it probably is. It probably is. Wait, they're certainly down there, I'd say. That sounds quite harsh, but they probably are down there in terms of the general squad compared to others. I think they're going to get relegated, I'm going to put them in that bottom tier. I'm sorry, Burton fans. I'm Burton fans. Forest Green fans. Yeah, I'm going to put them down there. It's tough, but we move on. Right then, so let's go to Exeter City, 10th in the league, having a really, really good start to this season. The man, of course, that we all know as League One fans, being the key part of this Exeter start to the campaign of great success. Giovanni Brown, of course, 7.69 rating on SofaScore, but really getting involved in those goal contributions. In fact, let's click on his name in a little bit more detail. 9 games played, 9 games started, 6 goals and 4 assists, 10 goal contributions in 9 games. What an absolute achievement that is, and how important that is. So key in their start to the season that has brought them, I think, real joy. 10 games played, like I said, 4 wins, 2 draws, and 4 losses. So a little bit inconsistent. It is fairly inconsistent, but generally, they're going to take it. They're going to take it similar to Port Vale, but better than Port Vale. They didn't really expect to be pushing the top 6, or probably even pushing top 10. They are in that top 10 at the moment, only just, but they're still top 10, and take that for sure. A win in their last game, 2 losses before that. Like I say, 4 wins, 4 draws. Sorry, 4 wins, 4 losses and a draw. It has been a little bit hot and cold, up and down, but generally they'll take that. They will take that, and they snap your hand off of that, I'd say, after 10 games. So I'm going to say they're going to be fine, and I think they're going to be in that. They're gonna be in that top end. I think we might see a little bit of a drop off. Has that squad got enough to sort of see through the amount of games in this league? And adrenaline will keep you going for a long time, being a newly promoted side, and of course the confidence of winning games of football. I'm going to put them in there. They could easily go in there, but we can only have 6 teams in there. We can have 8 teams in there. They might get in there though. They could. I'm going to put them in there for now. We might come back for Exeter because they are doing very, very well and certainly impressing me so far. Right, let's move over to the next club. So Shrewsbury Town next, and currently 9th in the league. A really good window, actually. A really promising transfer window. Currently 9th in the league. 10 games played, 4 wins, 3 draws and 3 defeats. 11 goals scored, 11 goals conceded. Very, very balanced. Exactly 0 when it comes to their goal difference after 10 games for the side. Like I said, their window was good. They certainly did add quality to the side. They certainly did. They added, I think, some championship quality. Shipley is the name that stands out for me. They also brought in Dunkley, of course, from Sheffield Wednesday, who's so far done a really good job in that back line, in that back 3 that we know that Shrewsbury is sort of adapting more and more. Pennington also playing in that back 3. That side is now, I think, filled much more with quality to sort of retake them to that next level, sort of hovering sort of in the bottom half in recent years. And that's going to be something that they want to improve. And how do you improve that? You bring in better players. I do think their window did show that. So, look, they're 9th, and they're certainly still in the race, as are absolutely everybody, really, other than Burton. And probably, you'd argue, Morecambe, but you know what I'm trying to say. They're certainly in the race. 15 points, 17 points is what Bolton are on, and it's only 2 points in about 3 positions. So they're absolutely still in for a shout. And we did speak about it right at the start. The first fan calling, we said, we spoke to a Shrewsbury Town fan. He said top 10 will be the aim. Top 10 will be the aim. Following year, can we push into that top 6? They're currently in that top 10, 9th. I think they could sneak in there permanently. Don't think they're ready for the top 6 yet. I don't think they're sort of at that point yet, but I certainly do think they're going to be in that 7 to 12 tier. Let's move on to Morecambe. So Morecambe next, and currently in that relegation zone at the moment, 23rd in the league after 10 games. They are struggling, and I did think they were going to struggle, if I'm being completely honest. A little bit harsh potentially, but I did think they could be in a little bit of trouble at the start of the season. They were one of the sides who I did predict to finish in that bottom 4, and so far they are living up to that prediction, which isn't great, and not the living up that they hope to be living up to, if that makes sense. After 10 games, 1 win, 4 draws and 5 defeats, 18 goals conceded. They are shipping quite a few and only scoring 7. The worst, I believe, in the league when it comes to goals scored. To be honest with you, Derby and Fleetwood have only scored 9, but they are the worst in the league. And when you're conceding 18 and not scoring many, if there's any consolation for Burton, sorry for coming back to Burton, but they conceded 24, they have scored 11. From Morecambe, only scoring 7. And why is that? Well, Cole Stockton is, of course, a really key man in that side. And we spoke, and I remember saying it, Cole Stockton, if Morecambe are going to get out of trouble or, I think, stay out of the relegation zone and stay up for the second consecutive year in League One, it's going to be down to Cole Stockton. A huge part of that is going to be down to Cole Stockton, their number 9, who scored over 20 goals. I think it was 25 goals in total, might be more than that, last season in League One. Such a key figure, the sort of the focal point in that Morecambe side. Both with his influence and also, like I say, with the sort of the character that you felt he brought to that side. Certainly stepped up when it mattered and scored an abundance of goals, and single-handedly, ultimately, no disrespect intended, kept them in the league. Without his goals, they will be playing League 2 football this year. They're not. They're back in League 1. But Cole Stockton, of course, a lot of saga in the summer surrounding his future. We said it was going to be difficult for them to keep hold of Cole Stockton, wanted by a lot of football clubs. I think Fleetwood were in for him, Port Vale as well. So maybe not the clubs that we sort of thought they'd be, thought would sort of be in for him. But there you go. Fair play to those football clubs who sort of trying to bring in who I think would be an exceptional number 9 with the sort of the right mindset. And I don't think his head's there. I watched him against Oxford. He didn't start in the game. Whether that's, I think it's down to illness, was what it was said at the time, but I think a lot of that probably was down to potentially him basically publicly saying that he wants to leave the football club. So you can understand why he maybe did start on the sidelines. But again, you felt as though he wasn't the Cole Stockton of last season. He wasn't darting into the penalty area. He wasn't that real finisher, last man advance forward, holding up the ball. He wasn't really involved in the attacks of Morecambe, and that, for me, is their biggest downfall. Their biggest downfall. In fact, I don't think he's even on the top 10. He's even in any 18th when it comes to the games he's been part of. 6 games played, and he has not yet scored a goal. Shots per game, 1.2, but again, no goals in 6. Nothing like the Cole Stockton of last year, and certainly the letdown, in my opinion. Morecambe, I think you're in trouble. Bit of a pattern here. All the sides in the relegation zone. Currently, I've got them going down. Morecambe continuing on that trend. 21st, 24th in the relegation zone for me, for Morecambe. Right then, let's go over to Lincoln City, who are currently 12th in the league. 2 wins on the bounce, and what a game they're part of in their recent one against Bristol Rovers. 6-3. 6-3 in a game of football. Wow. Absolutely bizarre. 9 goals in one game. We spoke to Jake from the Stacey West podcast. Definitely go and check him out. He's a brilliant content creator, of course, Lincoln City fan as well, and somebody that knows that football club like nobody else. And he was saying, look, it has been quite inconsistent. It has been up and down. We've had some difficult results in there, but things are looking much better. It's quite stagnant after, or it's quite stale, should I say, after that Michael Appleton sort of tenure last year. The squad needed a refresh, it needed a restart, and of course with new management, a few players leaving the club. Anthony Scully, of course, was a big influence in that win against Oxford. He scored the goal. He goes to Wycombe. They did invest, they did add some new faces, of course with a new manager as well. They did sort of see a lot of change, but so far, the style of play looks much better. The results aren't bad. They're currently, like I say, exactly in that mid-table, 12th in the league, 4 draws, 2 defeats and 3 wins, 14 goals scored, 14 goals conceded. Exactly the same when it comes to goals scored and goals conceded, and on a good run in the short term. Mark Kennedy, of course, came through the door and had quite a big job on his hands to sort of really, like I say, restart and refresh what was quite a stale squad after quite a disappointing and tough season last year. So I'm going to put them in that, I'm going to put them between 7th and 12th. I'm going to put that 7th to 12th tier. I could be wrong, as I probably will be for most of these football club predictions, but I'm going to put them in there. Let me know, Lincoln City fans. Jake, if you're watching, where would you put them? But I'm going to put them just in that tier there, mid-table. I think they'll be fine. Maybe even higher than that. Well, top half. Let's see what happens. Right then. Let's go to Bristol Rovers, currently the 4th team in that relegation zone. The 4th and final team we're going to be speaking about in that relegation zone. 21st in the league, 6 defeats, 2 wins, 2 draws, and now winless in their last 5. 3 defeats on the bounce. It's been quite a struggling few weeks for Joey Barton's Bristol Rovers side, and I didn't expect it. I feel a little bit let down by Bristol Rovers. I do. And I'm not a Bristol Rovers fan. Far from it. But I do think as though that squad and that side should be doing slightly better than it is. You can see by looking at these recent games, 1-0 defeat at home to Accrington. That's going to be a tough one to take. 6-3 to Lincoln City. Conceding 6 goals at home. That's going to be a tough one to take. Ipswich, 2 red cards, and that'll be difficult to take, but generally the result isn't too much of a shameful one. 2-2 against Morecambe at home. You expect them to be doing better in that one. 1-1 in the Football League Trophy. I believe they lost on penalties. 3-1, 1-1. They've lost quite a few games, but the start of the season was promising. A brilliant win over Burton Albion, a brilliant win over Oxford as well. They played really well in that game. I was impressed by Bristol Rovers. Not overly impressed, but I was impressed. I thought they certainly would be doing better than they have done in that recent few weeks. It's been tough for Bristol Rovers, and this sort of really does show how the last sort of couple of weeks have gone. In fact, not a couple. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or 8 games. It's been really, really quite worrying for Joe Barton. He's got a real job in his hands here. He wants to be really taking Bristol Rovers back to the Championship and sort of the right end of this League One table. So far, not so good, if we're being completely honest. Have they got a chance of going down? I do think there's going to be a side in here that could be dropping down if Bristol Rovers don't go into that bottom tier, because I don't see any other side here getting relegated, if I'm being totally honest. So, I'm going to put them in that bottom tier now, but I know they're already in that relegation zone. For me, the potential swap would be it's between Cheltenham and Bristol Rovers. So far, from what I've seen. Cheltenham and Bristol Rovers, and maybe a rogue shout for Port Vale, but I think Port Vale will be okay. So I'd go, Cheltenham, Bristol Rovers, and potentially Port Vale are my candidates for going for relegation, alongside Burton, Forest Green Rovers, and Morecambe. We'll come back to that. Let me know. I've sort of got to make a decision before the end of the episode. But that's what I'm going to go so far. But it's quite boring because it is the current bottom 4. But that does sort of show us quite a lot. Right. Let's go to Derby County. Derby County, who are currently, I believe, 11th. Yeah, 11th in the league. 9 goals scored. That's, for me, the downfall. In recent weeks, a little bit of change off the field. Of course, Liam Rosner has sort of stepped down, and Paul Warner's come in, Rotherham United, or ex-Rotherham United manager, should I say. I like that appointment. Of course, somebody who knows League One very, very well, has won League One a few times, got them promoted. Rotherham out of League One now for quite a few years. The problem you could sort of ask them would be, can they, is he a manager with a track record to stay in the league after promotion? You probably would have to argue he isn't. I mean, he hasn't got a great track record when it comes to keeping teams in that league after promotion. But generally focusing on the short term and focusing on League One, that's where they are right now. I think it's a really good appointment, and he's got a lot of players to sort of try and fit and weave his way in, and I'm going to be interested to see what his best 11 will be and what he's going to do. Do I think Liam Rosner sort of stepping down or being asked to step down is the right decision? Probably. It probably is. He was never really sort of 100% the long-term answer. I don't think anybody thought that. Maybe if he sort of was top of the league now after 10 games and won all of them, or won the majority of them, you could argue that there could be something on the cards, but I just think, I just think now is probably the time to change it. And they did do it. They beat Wycombe Wanderers 2-1. They lost to Lincoln City the time before that, and Plymouth 3-2. It hasn't been dreadful. But it's been challenging. I think at times they sort of have been maybe caught out a bit of complacency, and I think the lack of their takeover was a massive part of their football club's history, and always will go down as quite a relieved moment in football history for them specifically, and for the wider world. And that did come with the fact that when that takeover did go through, they had a lot of players coming through the door. That was going to be a challenge for them to gel. Paul Warner's job now is to sort of exactly do that. So I do think they're going to... this is tough. Do I think they're going to get in that top 6? No, I don't. I'm going to put them in there. I'll make it sound better, though, so I'll put them higher up. You can't really see them, but I think they're going to sort of miss out on the top 6. That could change, but I just don't think they're going to get in that top 6. That could be cruel. They could be quite naive. They could be bold and stupid. We'll find out. Right, let's go to Charlton Athletic then, because we're playing them on Saturday. I'm looking forward to going to the Valley for the first time. And for Charlton, it's been quite bad so far. And what I mean by that is, I look at that squad, not that squad, that's the Derby squad, and I just do expect better. The ownership will have to take responsibility, because there were some areas in which they didn't strengthen in the summer. The striker, their striker is Stockley, isn't it? Who hasn't really hit the ground running, 1 goal so far this season. And again, they sort of have got one option. Lee Byrne can do it, but again, he's still young and still growing and getting better. The midfield options are really strong. Raksaki has been a really exciting player. Kirk as well, we know his quality in this division. But there are certain areas that are looking quite weak. However, the performances, I'd say, should be better with that squad, and that's why I look at it and go, look, there are certain quality in that sort of 23-man squad, 25-man squad, or whatever it is, but I do expect better, and there will be areas in which they take sort of ownership, will have to take responsibility, but that's not really what we're getting into at the moment. We're sort of basing off what we're going to see so far, what we have seen so far, and what we could see in the future. A disappointing loss to Barnsley. We pretty much, I mean, to be fair, Charlton did all right. But again, Barnsley, they took their chances and Charlton scored. Barnsley took their chances and Charlton scored quite late on. A 1-1 draw against Fleetwood, a 1-1 draw against Forest Green Rovers. They're going to be quite difficult draws to take. Drawing at home to Forest Green Rovers, you look at where they are on the league table, that seems to be a little bit of a letdown. Quite disappointing one. 3-1 to Bolton Wanderers as well. That sort of felt like they got played off the park, and you can sort of see that by looking at the graph there. I think they're going to still be fine, though. I could put them in there. We only have one more team. We only have one more team in there. We haven't got anyone in the playoffs yet. I'm going to put them in there to start, but they could creep up easily in there. We'll come back to it. It might have a bit of a jiggle when we get to it. Right, let's go to MK Dons. MK Dons Football Club. Of course, won their last game against Oxford United. A good win against us. But so far, it has been a side that have sort of lost their key men in the summer and are showing that. Scott Twine, of course, joined Burnley. Harry Darling joined Swansea City. And we are now seeing the importance of them to the football club and how good they were last year. They did try and reinvest. They did reinvest into quite young talent. Look at that long-term vision. Bringing in some younger faces who can grow, can develop, and they can potentially sell on, or, if not sell on, certainly see the quality of them as players playing for MK Dons for the future to come. But generally, it hasn't been great. It hasn't been outstanding. And I look at that squad, they have got some really good depth and some really good players. It's just waiting now for it to completely click and get right. They have won 3 games so far this season. Fifth. They wish they were fifth. 5 games they've lost, and they've drawn a game in there as well. Very tight with Oxford, of course, came off the right end of that game 2 weeks ago. And did look the much better side. We didn't look great whatsoever, but they did look much better in transition. McCachran in that midfield looks really good, and of course he's been injured so far this year, so him coming back into sort of that the swing of things, I think, showed his quality and what type of player he's going to be and how important he has been for MK Dons. And now, he's back in that side. It's going to cause problems. He's such a creative spark in that sort of middle four they play in that sort of that straight four of a left midfielder, 2 central midfielders, and a right midfielder in that 3-4-3. Or they can also play other formations, but that is the one that we sort of see quite often by the quite exciting manager that is Liam Manning. So, all in all, MK Dons, I don't know, that inconsistency for me is the problem. And they beat Oxford, but we're not very good. So what does that really show us, Beating a side like Oxford at the moment is not really much of an achievement. I'm going to put them in there. Sorry, MK Dons fans. You could still change, but I'm going to put you in that tier there. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We can only have one more team in that 13 to 20th category. We need to find some more playoff teams. We're coming to them. Let's go to one right now. Wycombe Wanderers. I do think they're going to do it, I just think they might. They might not. If they don't, then I've made myself look like a right idiot. But you can't write off Gareth Ainsworth. You can't write him off. He's a manager that just does so well when it comes to backs against the wall. People don't believe in us. Not a big budget. But we just grind our way through. We grind and we play pretty rubbish football. And they're currently 17th in the league. I know I don't normally say about rubbish football. I say that back. But it isn't great football. But what you can't argue with, and what I mean by that is, I get quite annoyed when people say boring or bad football. But in Wycombe's case, it isn't great football. But it works. So you can't really argue with it. Would they want to probably be playing more attractive football? Probably. But they've been successful in recent years. They're 17th in the league. They have lost 5 games. They've only won 3. They've drawn 2. They lost the last 2. We spoke about maybe moving on to playoff sides. That could be too much of an ask for Wycombe. I do see improvement, though. I really do. And I wouldn't be surprised if they got on a brilliant run and sneak it, because that's exactly what Wycombe would do. But I'm going to put them in there. In there. Yeah. I might move one up. Who can I move up? I want to move over Oxford. I'm going to move up Charlton, actually. Out of those two, I'm getting on to Charlton. Who do I move back up? We'll come back to it. In fact, we don't need to. We don't need to. Well, I'm happy with that. Right, let's go to Barnsley, who are currently 5th in the league. 10 games played, 5 wins, 2 draws, and 3 losses. Unbeaten in at least their last 5. 2 wins on the bounce, 17 points from those opening 10 games. And in that top 6, after what was quite a challenging sort of first few weeks of Michael Duff's reign as Barnsley manager, a difficult managerial job to come into. It was going to be really, really quite difficult for him to sort of, I guess, get his foot in the door and seek a real change in how Barnsley want to be playing their football and how they want their football club to be run just generally. A loss to Plymouth in their opening game. That felt quite disappointing. 1-0. 2-1 to Derby. 3-0 defeat to Wycombe. That's a cup game. 3-0. Again, that's also a cup game as well. A draw against Ipswich, which felt as though maybe Ipswich they felt quite hard done by. Barnsley, they'll certainly take it. So they've lost 3 games in the league, 2-1 to Derby, 3-0 heavy at home to Wycombe, and 1-0 to Plymouth Argyle. Do I think they're going to get in that top 6? They're currently in that top 6. I just don't know. Which I'm saying about every single football club so far, which isn't very good for prediction, is it? I've got where I put Barnsley written down here. I have got them missing out on the playoffs in there, which means every club, surprise, surprise, has got to go in that tier there, but we will have to find out a winner, of course. Have we got too many teams? No, of course we don't. Of course we don't. Because we've got a top 2 there. So, I'm going to go there. Barnsley missing out. Yeah, Barnsley missing out. That feels harsh. Just next to Derby. 2 big clubs there with real ambitions, relegated from Championship last season. In my opinion, missing out on the top 6 feels cruel. Feels very, very cruel. Going to drop out there, in my opinion. Harsh, I know. So, Peterborough United next, and currently 8th in the league, just outside that top 6. Only 2 points away from those playoff places. It's been quite a challenging start for Grant McCann. 5 wins and 5 losses, equal when it comes to their wins and defeats. And they went on a pretty horrific run before they won finally again at the weekend. In fact, we click on their name here, we can sort of go to their recent games. You can see it's not looking very pretty. A defeat to Bolton, a defeat to Fleetwood, a defeat to Pompey, a defeat to Stevenage in the Cup, Derby, they lost to as well. It's been challenging. It has been really quite challenging. The last win in League One before that run kicked off was a 4-0 win over Lincoln City. I thought they'd run away with it at that point. Not literally run away with it, but I mean, certainly have better form than they did show, because it did get quite dirty at Peterborough when you look at that form there. 5 defeats on the bounce, but the last game they beat Port Vale. We had a brilliant guy come on, talking on the fan call in, speaking about maybe Grant McCann's future being under threat. He didn't think it should have been, and I would agree as well. But, you know, we look at the world we live in at the moment, sort of managerial futures seems to be the talking point all of the time, and you can see why. There's a lot of responsibility, and their fans care about the football club. They want to be successful, or want to be as successful as they can be. And, of course, when you're the manager, you two take on pretty much the entirety of that responsibility. So it's going to be always challenging for them, and a bad run of games doesn't help. So, where do we put Peterborough? Where do we put Peterborough? I mean, we can only put them in that top 6, essentially. I think they're going to do it, you know. I think they will do it. I could swap them for Barnsley, and maybe Derby. I probably could swap them there. Again, they're the 3 that, for me, are going to be the big talking points that miss out, because they are 3 clubs that want to desperately be in that top 6 come the end of the season. They still might. But I'm going to go with Peterborough. Something about them. That bad run didn't help them, but that big win at the weekend certainly did take them back into, hopefully for them, a good piece of rhythm and momentum. Right, let's move over to the next side. Let's get to Bolton Wanderers. Because Bolton are currently, when you're looking at this league table, 6th in the league, just in that top 6. But only 9 games played. Look at the other sides in there. Other than Pompey, everyone else has played 10 games. So it was always going to be quite a challenge to still be in that top 6 when you don't play a game of football. They have done. That shows when they have been playing football, they've been getting some good results, and it has got better. 3 wins on the bounce. Some difficult defeats before that run, but it is getting much better, and we are now seeing Ian Everett's side pick up the points in Sky Bet League 1. 17 points in total. 5 wins, 2 draws, and 2 losses. This side is getting better, and it was always going to take a little bit of time to really figure out exactly what the best 11 was going to be. However, a lot of the business was done in January, so it did sort of give them that opportunity to show it. Get a run going, things will look much better, and they have done that. A brilliant win over Charlton, a really good win over MK Dons, and a good win against Peterborough United as well. These are clubs that certainly will be hoping to be in that top 6. Charlton, I don't think that's going to happen, as previously mentioned. MK Dons, bad start, seems to be a struggle, and Peterborough, I do think, might get in that top 6 on a permanent basis. But what I mean by that is Charlton certainly would have wanted to, and MK Dons would have felt after last season they could have done as well, but hasn't to be. But the comeback could be on. I'm going to go with Bolton certainly being in that top 6. I think they're going to be absolutely fine to get top 6, which just sounds quite, again, I don't want to jinx Bolton, because I've got quite a bad jinx record here on the podcast. I'm going to put them in there, though. I think they're going to finish in that top 6, 3rd to 6th for Bolton Wanderers. And again, some key players to watch out for. Connor Bradley, Jack Irondale? Jake Irondale? Is it Jack Irondale? I think it's Jack, isn't it? Jack Irondale, yeah. Again, those fullbacks are playing really, really well. Connor Bradley, the only from Liverpool, exceptional. Some of the players as well, certainly getting better and better. James Trafford, the goalkeeper, it's a solid shout. Yeah, that squad's looking really good in depth, and I think they're going to be fine for the top 6. I think they're going to be absolutely fine. Right, let's go over to the final 2 sides, and let's go to Sheffield Wednesday, who are currently, as a recording, 4th in the league. 6 wins, 2 draws, and how many losses? Just didn't quite catch that. We'll bring up the league table now. Should be up and running. 2 defeats in there. 20 goals scored. The current top goal scorers in the division. They do like scoring goals. Considering 10 will be a little bit of a letdown, especially in the games in which they didn't get the result they would have wanted to. But a brilliant thumping result against Forest Green certainly did help that goal difference. The last 3 games, they have kept an unbeaten record. Their win in their last one felt very, very important after that draw against Ipswich. It was a comfortable win over Wycombe Wanderers in the end. They've got Port Vale next. Difficult trip to Home Park, the fortress that Plymouth are creating the week after that. So the Tuesday after that, it's going to be really, really tough for Sheffield Wednesday. But that squad is looking in really good shape. And of course, every time they lose, I sort of hear the Darren Moore club sort of shouting and screaming, we don't think he's the right man. When they win, it quietens a little bit. But that's always going to happen. That's how football opinions are always to be perceived. Barry Bannon, of course, a brilliant start to the season for Barry Bannon. We know his level is a bit of a cheat code in League One. A lot of people call him that. I do agree. Barnes had a good game. Mark McGuinness as well as a defender. Michael Smith, of course, scored a goal in that last one. A very key player. Of course, very successful at Rotherham United. A Hickway, the captain at the back as well. Another player who did very, very well at Rotherham. Joining the summer. He certainly is shoring up that back 3. For me, they're going to be fine for the top 6. Could they go in that top 2? They easily could. But I'm not going to put them there yet. Let's go to the final team. Then we'll make a few more changes. Portsmouth, let's see where they are. 3rd in the league, of course they are. Didn't take too long to find them. Of course, they have got a game in hand on Ipswich, Plymouth, Sheffield Wednesday and Barnsley. I mean, they've got a game in hand on quite a few sides, but those are the sides in that top 6 that they've got a game in hand on. Still unbeaten. The only side to be unbeaten still after 10 games. It does sort of set them up for, again, a week with no games being played in international break. Well, there were some games being played, but for Pompey it wasn't. To give them an opportunity to sort of recharge, reset, go again, work on things that haven't gone quite well, and build on the things they have got right. But I watched the interview with Danny Cowley and Tom, again on 4-0 written all over it. A brilliant interview. Definitely go and check it out. Speaking to the gaffer at Fratton Park. He even said himself, look, this week does give us an opportunity to sort of, to not rest, but certainly sort of take stock and analyse what we've seen so far, and then hopefully see an improvement after the break. And it's all going to start big time against Ipswich. Not an easy game to come back into things with, but generally Pompey, can't really argue too much. They've been very, very good. 2-2 draw against Plymouth, some will say not thoroughly deserved, but again, I wasn't at the game. I can't really tell you too much about it. In fact, we could look at the graph really briefly. Even, but Plymouth in sort of the last 20 for sure deserve to win that game. Not much more to say about Pompey, other than the fact they play a really good 4-4-2 that brings a real attractive brand of football to their system. Danny Cowley's a very good man manager and certainly getting the best out of some individuals. And Colby Bishop's a brilliant signing. Marlon Pack is also not bad either. They're also going to get in that top 2. In fact, they could ease as well. So that, I mean, to be honest, you could argue Bolton. I'm going to sort of go with Bolton there because that could get too complicated. Who drops out? Who wins the league? I'm going to go Ipswich to still win the league. Even the last defeat felt quite significant. I got Sheffield Wednesday to win the league earlier in the season. I have changed there. It's either Ipswich. So tough. I'm going to go Plymouth in the playoffs. Pompey in the playoffs. Top 2 of Ipswich and Sheffield Wednesday. Ipswich by a toss of a coin winning the league. Sheffield Wednesday certainly making it quite difficult, along with Peterborough, Bolton, Plymouth and Portsmouth, who are all doing a very, very good job so far this season. And it feels harsh to drop Portsmouth down. They would take top 6, but with the position they're in at the moment, I mean, it's going to be a big game at the weekend. Ipswich versus Pompey is a huge fixture, a massive game. And one last thing as well, this is actually Future Jack speaking. I'm editing the video right now. We didn't actually get to round up on the relegation conversation. I said between Cheltenham, Bristol Rovers, or potentially Port Vale. In the end, I did finish with Bristol Rovers on the tier. But it's so close and so difficult, and I want you to help me out there, because that's the only one, really, that I'm quite stuck on. Barnsley and Peterborough and Derby is a bit of another trio, and 2 of them, I think, will miss out on the playoffs. I went with Peterborough in the end. But that relegation battle, where are you going with that? Because I went with Bristol Rovers in the end. I could easily have gone with Cheltenham, because they haven't been much better either. I think Bristol Rovers, their squad is probably better than Cheltenham's, if we're being honest. It's tough. And Port Vale as well, they have had a better start to the season compared to both of them. However, again, that squad could fall off and could drop off. I don't know. Nobody knows. But please do let me know, because I'm intrigued. I didn't really get to round it off in the episode. Right. I think that's me done. Let's round off the episode now. Right, so that does wrap up my final or revised League One predictions after 9/10 games of football being played. Remember, we will not be disregarding the ones I did before the campaign started. We'll be looking back at them at the end of the season. But this does give us an opportunity to reflect, predict and chat about every single club that we've seen kick a football in Sky Bet League One so far this season. I doubt I've got many of these right, but we'll have to wait and see. Leave a like, subscribe, and in the comment section down below, what are your predictions? Are you getting any of these correct so far? Maybe you did ones at the start. Am I getting any of these right, do you think? I don't know. I'm open for conversation and for debate as per usual. Until next time, I've been Jack, and this has been the Unfan Podcast. Take care, stay safe, and I'll see you all very, very soon. See you in a bit.